Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It's Sunday and it is match day review time as myself, Reese, and special guest Josh Evans. Now, Josh works for BBC Gloucester as a summariser for Forest Green Rovers. So technically not a Forest Green fan, but someone who will certainly be able to give us a very good perspective from an away perspective. That's what I was trying. That was awful. That was so bad. But we'll carry on and we'll roll with it. Welcome, Josh. Appreciate your time after probably quite a late finish Saturday evening.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. A little bit of a late finish, but I'm bright and awake on a Sunday morning to talk about what the game was yesterday.
At least it wasn't as late as my finish when we came to your place just before Christmas, and that was even worse, that game. So it's certainly not two games that will. I think if they were both films, they'd probably go straight to DVD, wouldn't they? The two fixtures between Gills and Forest Green this season. Not
Yeah,
one for the football purists.
I think I said
Anyway,
to my commentator yesterday, it was one of those two games of 90 minutes, which you thought at half time, surely we can't have 2-0 nils.
no, and yeah, I suppose it got a little bit better second period, but I mean the bar was so incredibly low to start with, wasn't it? My summary for the game, Reese, I'll come to you first, was first period a complete non-event, second half a half of two halves, draw the right result.
Yeah, it's quite funny. Yeah, I think that's a really solid assessment. It's one of those games where we could have won it, but we should have lost it. Like it's a really weird one. If you
And then
kind of
we
look
should
at
have won it at the end with the Ashley
yeah.
Madison chance.
Although I think you were a little bit harsh in your reaction in the ground, and that's one thing I want to talk about. But we'll get to that at the end.
We
But,
shall get to that. We shall get to that, and I shall fight my corner. But we'll go back to 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock quickly and look at the team news. So I'll just run through those two teams. Gills with that 3-4-1-2 formation. There were three changes from the Accrington game. Jake Turner in goal, three centre backs the same: Masterson, Amer, and Ogie. Romeo Hutton came in for a debut at right wing back. The other side was Scott Malone. Slightly different central midfield pairing of Ethan Coleman and George Lapsley, Connor Mahoney in the 10, and a new strike partnership, Ollie Hawkins, this time lining up with Macaulay Bonne. In terms of Forest Green, it was a 4-3-3. Daniels in goal, a back four of Bernard, Moore, Taylor, Innes, and Robson. Three in front were Ossa Davey, the former Jill, McCann, and Jones. And up top, it was McAllister and Thompson, tasked with flanking top scorer Stevens. Right, first half shouldn't take too long. I think we're all in agreement. I thought, Reese, first couple of minutes, I thought that Romeo Hutton was quickly into the game, which is what you want from a player on debut. Him and Connor Mahoney linked up a couple of times, and I think I quite like Mahoney in this free role. It gives him licence to go and find the ball, which maybe he can't do so much in a 4-3-3 because he has to stick to his wing. I mean, I've written down half chance, but that's probably in the most generous sense of the term. I think Hutton crossed one early on. Mahoney shot from the edge of the box and it was blocked. And a similar one for them. Ball fell to Emmanuel Osadebe, edge of the box, and I think it sort of deflected and was cleared fairly comfortably. I can't talk this morning. What is wrong with me? Clearly, this game has absolutely
it's just
ruined
got
me.
yeah.
But that was probably the highlight of the first 10, 15 minutes. Two shots blocked that were never really going to trouble either goalkeeper.
I think it's interesting you talk about Hutton. Hutton, when he started, it looked like he was. Do you know when you go to maybe a new Sunday league football team, the first training session, and you're out
Mm-hmm.
there just to give 110% to impress? And in his interview he had at a few days ago, he said he said that first he looked at the ground and that it was nice, then looked at the Brian Moore stand. I thought that was quite rich,
Yeah, that was
and
quite
then
good. That the way they set the camera work up, wasn't it? For yeah, nice ground, and we've got that temporary thing in the background that's hideous.
But then he said, so the question was asked, what message you want to give the fans? And he said, crosses, lots of crosses. So, in the first 5 minutes, I can understand that's what he wants to deliver because that's essentially, ultimately, what we were kind of
Mm-hmm.
signing for, amongst other things. So you can kind of see why he was trying to get balls into the box and trying to show what he's made of. I'm sure that will get the quality will improve as he spends his time at the club. But I think that the first 5 or 10 minutes, that was kind of, I reckon that was in his mind. That's all he wanted to do. And have, like you say, Mahoney out there on that free moving role. Like you say, he can get into games, into those dangerous positions where he likes. But I do also think with that role, he can sometimes hide himself as well. So, there's two sides to that for me. But definitely, yeah. But those were the is it a glance in there from Bonne, I think, or Hawkins, I think, in that first 10 minutes, and that was kind of it.
Yeah,
Also,
I think
Davey
it
had
might
a
have been
chance.
Hawkins. Yeah, another cross from Hutton, wasn't it? Yeah, that Hawkins headed wide under pressure. There was a chance for, I think, Callum Jones. We'll get to him a bit later, but that
Mm.
Jake Turner literally just sort of fell on it.
But that was kind of it for the first sort of 15, even 20 minutes. There was nothing really. Well, there's nothing for the whole half. Let's be honest here. But yeah,
I actually think, Josh, sorry to interject there, Reese. Reese has just talked about another half chance, and I've done the final one, and then I've actually written half time. That was literally it, wasn't it? For the first 45 minutes, there was very little in the way of quality, very little in the way of patterns of play from either side. And certainly very little in the way of anything resembling goalmouth action. It was just a horrible watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Forest Green came with a bit of a plan to get to the second half, and I think they could understand Gills' position in the table and thought, we're away from home, let's get to the second half and then let's give it more of a go. And can understand Forest Green's plan to do that, and all credit to them having what was a goalkeeping coach a week ago in charge of the club. The game to come away with what seemed like you knew what they were doing. I'd say that's a positive. I think Gills were kind of caught in between, like kind of getting up the pitch and then also finding Hawkins as quick as possible. So you can understand them trying to go to Hawkins at times because he was giving Innes some trouble, but there wasn't a great deal of plan towards it, I found.
I think that's a fair assessment, and I think I said at half time, Reece, to Luke on the match day live, it was very much a Neil Harris approach to the game, wasn't it? Get the ball into the centre halves and or the centre midfielder, and then hit Hawkins and play from there, and that's not the right or the wrong way. That's just an effective way of playing at League Two, and I mean that with the most respect to League Two, but it's a horrible, nasty league to get out of, and you have to find different ways. And I think Stephen Clements has probably found that out a little quicker than he'd maybe anticipated.
I think throughout that first half, there you could fit the Atlantic Ocean between the forwards and the midfield. It was such a big gap. It was it seemed very hard to be able to find those connective passes and chemistry throughout the middle of the park. And I think that's where we struggled in that first half. And the quality moving forward, as we've said, it's on repeat all season. It was again a little bit on show in that first half. There was no quality in that first half really, apart from Forest Green having a plan, as Josh has already alluded to, and it worked, and it really worked in their favour, so they can really bolster on in the second half to try and make a game of it, which is ultimately what happened.
You're not going to come to bottom of the league, regardless of how we play and regardless of how many we score or don't score. You're not going to turn up at the team that's 8th that can invariably go 6th or 7th in the division with a win and try and play through them and play them off the park. You're going to come in and sit in and be compact and resolute. And I thought Forest Green did that really well. And like Josh said, the fella who's taken charge, I forgot, is it Dan Cannon?
Dan Connor.
Connor, sorry. Was essentially the goalkeeping coach 7 days ago. So it's a massive job for him to come in, and he's got to motivate these players who've, let's be fair, have taken an absolute battering in the last week or so as well from the former manager Troy Deeney. And we could probably do a whole show on the rights and wrongs of the comments he made. But if you peel back all them layers of the onion, so to speak, he's had to come in and get a group of players up that are not playing well. That's clear. They're bottom of the league, but there's ways and means of doing it. And I think Troy Deeney crossed the line. So yeah, I think it's a fabulous effort from everyone involved with Forest Green. Unfortunately, that's at our detriment, and potentially we probably made it a little bit easy for them second half as well. That second half obviously was slightly more interesting than the first 45 minutes. There was some goals, and keepers had to do a bit more, and defenders had to be a bit more switched on, and it makes you forget the cold a little bit more when there's stuff going on, because it was absolutely freezing. First chance, I think, was for Forest Green, Josh. I think there was a ball that got played into the box and it sort of broke to the edge of the D, and I think your lad jumped up with it with our midfielder, George Lapsley, who was just slightly late and sort of jumped into him shoulder, and the referee gave a free kick up. Is it given on the halfway line? I'm not sure, but he's given it, and the free kick was comfortable enough for Jake Turner, but at least it was a shot in anger a lot earlier than what we'd seen in the first period.
Yeah, I thought it was quite a tame free kick in the end. I think Jones would be disappointed not to either, if you're going to go goalkeeper's side, either hit it with a bit more power or try and get it over the wall, because it was a really good distance out. You looked at it and said, it's perfect, really, if you're looking at it. Yeah, I think he'd be a bit disappointed with that, but I think after his long range effort in the first half and then eventually getting a goal as well, he seemed to have quite a few efforts, something that we haven't really seen from Jones too much.
Yeah, and it was something you can probably say, and we'll talk about it in a minute when we get to the equalisers, that we didn't learn from, did we? We kept giving him space on the edge of the box around 20 yards out, and eventually it's law of average says that one's going to cause you more problem than the other ones. But before that, there was an offside goal for the Gills Reese, and I was adamant on the Match Day Live, and I left it in, having seen it back afterwards, because the Match Day Live that's the essence of it, is to get reaction as you're watching the game. And my opinion of it at the time was I thought it had hit the defender. I thought the defender had cleared it against his own teammate. So then my question was, is Macaulay Bonne offside? There was then another question mark. Does the offside rule only apply if the defender purposely plays it back towards his home goal? So there was a couple of question marks. But anyway, they were all null and void, because watching the highlights when I got home, it clearly hit George Lapsley in the backside, and Macaulay Bonne's a yard in front of the last man. So it's the correct call from the linesman and the referee. And I know Bonne sort of remonstrated, but I think if he sees it back, he probably understands that the goal's rightly chalked off. But it was frustrating because it was a good finish.
I'll tell you what, it was a good finish actually, and a shame it didn't count, unfortunately. But yeah, but even when I was doing my video, like usually I can tell if it's going to be an offside, and I could usually like tame down any celebrations that had happened. But actually, it took a while for me to see that it was offside and it was given, so I can understand the confusion, understand that it happened also quickly as well. That's the thing. But I mean, that period of the game actually, Forest Green was struggling a bit in defence. They were doing some poor out balls, and that was another example of that actually. And just unfortunately, Bonne was just 1 yard wrong side of the defender, because it was a good finish. It was tidy, and I think it shows glimpse of what he's able to do. And it's just, unfortunately, in that situation, it didn't come to a goal. But yeah, it was unfortunate offside, but a good pass to play. And yeah, I'm gutted that didn't count as a goal, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to my point that, and everyone knows my thoughts on Macaulay Bonne. I know he's not scored enough, and he's probably missed some chances that he should score. But I still think, and that's an example of it yesterday. And I'm come to you as well, Josh, to get your sort of outsider's perspective on it. But it's a proper striker's instinct, isn't it? A proper fox in the box instinct. He's sniffing out danger. He knows to just hold his shape and wait for that ball to come into the box. All right, he's slightly offside, but I don't think an Ashley Nadesan or a Tom Nichols are that type of striker for us, where they'd be instinctively aware that the ball might come into the box, and he's anticipated that. What did you make of Macaulay Bonne and Ollie Hawkins as a partnership, Josh? Because I'm only asking because Stephen Clements has kept chopping and changing since Ollie Hawkins has come back in. It's been Hawkins with one. So we've seen a couple of games with Tom Nichols. We've seen 3 or 4 with Ashley Nadesan. And then Bonne obviously got the nod yesterday after scoring last weekend. What did you make of it in its very embryonic stages, of course?
Yeah, I don't think there was much of a partnership between the two, is what I'd see on the whole. I think, like you probably mentioned, that's probably what I'd guess. Hawkins being the main man, and then kind of being a rotation around him. And no disrespect to Bonne, I thought that in previous years, I thought he's been a real good EFL striker and someone that you could probably bring in. And Gills obviously have done so. Maybe lacking a bit of a partnership between the two, maybe not knowing each other where they're going to be completely. And if you're going to revert to type eventually, you are going to try and play along into Hawkins and kind of hope for the best and the scraps around him. And whether Bonne probably didn't get himself always in the right positions, but like you said, in that one, maybe 1 yard offside, it was a really good finish. Just unfortunate for him that the offside flag did go up in that moment, because it was a really nice finish. Striker, maybe it was a bit fortunate how it dropped to him, but he certainly had to do it quickly and get the effort off. And it was just unfortunate for you guys that the offside flag went up, and it was quite late, wasn't it? I thought for a second that it was going to be a goal. The commentator next to me, he kind of shuddered as the ball hit the back of the net, because he thought, it's 1-0 down. But then the offside flag, probably 1 or 2 seconds later, did just go up.
Yeah, I think you noticed Conor Mahoney run behind the goal in front of the Rainier, giving it all the celebrations, and then looks very late. And you think, oh, it's not one of them where it's like it's gone in and everyone's sort of not celebrated at all. But ultimately, the officials have got to the right decision, so we can't complain at all. Whether or not the flag is slightly late is by the by. It's the right decision, isn't it, Reese?
It is. Well, we could have VAR.
That's me being nice to officials again.
It is, but you could have VAR if you want as well, Matt. You never know.
I'm getting soft in my old age. No, I don't want VAR.
No, we don't want that. We don't want that. No, but no, fair. Credit where it's due for the referee. And I thought that was, a good decision. And even on the TV camera, you could tell that's probably offside, albeit the angle that we have, it would look pretty bang on offside. So, yeah, fair enough.
Absolutely, yeah. And there was one comment on our Facebook forum last night and said the only thing worse than Gills was the referee. I I didn't understand that. I thought I didn't notice the referee too much, and I always think that's a good indicator that he's not had a bad game. I don't know what you
Yeah.
think thought on him. I know Josh can probably answer it a little bit better because he can look at it from a slightly more neutral perspective. But I thought the referee was absolutely fine yesterday. Well, I know the linesmen in this division, they tend to wait for the referee to make a decision and then they put their flag up either way. But that's been the same for years. But I thought the man in the middle was all right.
Yeah, I think he was pretty good at, like you said, a neutral point of view. So you're not kind of clouding it on your guy's perspective. And I suppose I thought he had a good game. I don't think there was any glaring errors. I don't think there was many big decisions to make. I don't think there was any like close penalty calls, or I wasn't sure that it was a free kick on the edge of the box like we just mentioned with Jones, but it's not major decisions that I thought he had to make. And like you said, I didn't really notice him. So normally that's a good indicator for the referee.
Absolutely. And I'll come to you, Reece. I think maybe the only other slightly contentious decision, but this again is with the benefit of seeing a highlight afterwards on social media, was the tackle by Darboe on Hutton second half. I think I said in the ground, it might be an orange.
Yeah.
But is it the yellow side of orange or is it the red side of orange? I think again I'll give the referee credit. I don't like doing this. This is becoming far too much of a habit. Me praising referees.
I just
did you make of that challenge? I thought it was late. Was it enough to be out of control to be considered endangering an opposition player? That would be my question.
No, I think if you're watching it in full speed, it changes, and you're right on the pitch. I suppose the view. I don't know. I think. From my perspective, I think it was a tough challenge, of course, but I don't think it would warrant anything stronger than, as you say, like an orange card. If there was, like I know they're talking about putting sin bins of orange cards in football at the moment. We don't want that, but maybe that would be a challenge that would qualify. Who knows? But I don't think it was anything stronger than a yellow card in my opinion.
No, that's fine, and I think I'm probably erring on that side of things as well. And again, I'm assuming myself and Reece are slightly older than Josh, so I think when we were growing up, that was just a good challenge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Whereas now, I think everything gets questioned. Like I think there's a red card in the Wrexham Newport game as well. And Will Boyle gets a straight red. Is that's certainly not a red card in the 90s? It's probably not a red card 10 years ago. But because such are the rules now, where if you've got a stud showing or you follow through, I suppose by the letter of the law, the Boyle one is the correct call. But for me, it's a man's sport, men's football, and it's a contact sport at the end of the day. But it's that's the thing about the rules always changing.
I don't think that's a red card when I used to play in the Sunday leagues in the Medway towns, not even today. It's, that Wrexham one, which I happened to see yesterday, and the one yesterday at Gills Forest Green. If that's quite a common occurrence if you go down the football pyramid, I think, and people that's by and part of the game. But yeah, if the further we got the pyramid, the more people question it, I suppose. And it's that fine line between the pace of the game, the player's safety, and, lots of people like to put the quotes in, "All the game's gone soft." I don't know, I think it's a little bit too rich to sometimes say that, but yeah, it's certainly the rules are adapted and changing all the time, and there's heavy player protection as a result, and therefore it's up for interpretation from the referee to decide whether it's dangerous or not, and therefore it can get a little bit vague and cloudy. And that's
absolutely.
kind of my summary of that.
But I think we in a long-winded way, just to try and pad out the episode, we're saying that the referee was actually all right yesterday afternoon. There was another half chance for the Gills gents. I think Forest Green were actually on the attack, and Gills done well to break up play and broke. And I think for a minute or two, they might have had an extra player up. And I think it was Macaulay Bonne who tried to cross. Defender done well to partially clear, and then Bonne managed to lay it off to that man Hutton again, who good ball to the back post. And I think it was a player that I said would potentially thrive if Hutton's delivery was going to be as good as what we've seen from his Swindon career, and that was Ollie Hawkins. And again, it's a half chance I've put it down as the defender's doing well to put him under pressure, and Hawkins' head's just wide of the far post. But is it fair to say, Josh, and again I'll ask you so that we don't have any sort of blue tinted glasses on, that just after the early free kick from Jones, Gills probably had 15-20 minutes where they were much the better side. They were bossing the game in terms of territory. We were playing in Forest Green's third. We was having more of the ball, and then that's where the goal came from shortly afterwards, isn't it? What was your perspective of that at that time? Were you thinking if Gills do go in front, which they did, then you maybe feared for Forest Green a little bit given the form?
Yeah, and I think I was quite frustrated at the time because I thought you could see the goal coming from a certain point. It was a good 5-10 minutes of pressure, and Hawkins was starting to get more and more involved. He was for that particular one, he peeled onto Bernard, who he's always going to win the header against. He had a lot of joy out of Innes yesterday, who is a big 6'6" centre half and been really pumped for games recently, and he did get the better of him at times. Just peeled onto the fullback, and I thought it was a good chance at the time, just because of how he'd been able to get towards the back post and get a good contact on it. It did just drop a few yards wide in the end, but I think, yes, that spell of pressure was something that Forest Green will probably think could have affected it, whether it be on the pitch, off the pitch, with any changes. They probably should have weathered that storm in the position, the bottom of the table, but you've got to try and find ways to get through that eventually. Try and climb the table, get points on the board. I think they'll be a little bit frustrated that they didn't find a way to get through that. I think Gills certainly put on a lot of pressure, a lot of territory, and good cross into the box. And eventually the goal came, but it's about how you stop those moments and how you don't want to see players going down injured or anything, but you want leaders on the pitch to try and stop the goals from happening, because you could really feel it coming.
Yeah, and I think you talk about the leaders and you say you don't want people going down, and we're not saying people are faking injury, but if there's a touch of cramp and you're in the game and you're bottom of the league visiting a team that's high up the table, then you go and sit down and you give yourself a breather. And I think Forest Green probably did that better once they got to 1-1, didn't they? But the goal did come, Reece, for the Gills first before we get further on. And it's that man Mahoney again. We know there's been chats on social media probably throughout the season that he does drift out of games a little bit, but he's a match winner, isn't he? And that's the biggest thing that you can have at the level. And when he's in the game, he's a massive threat. Both feet, he can go both ways. He can shoot. He can cross. I think he's now up to 10 goal contributions for the season, and it's a good delivery, and it's a similar situation probably to last week's equaliser at Accrington. Only this time, Ollie Hawkins peels to the back post and is able to head on goal. Whereas last weekend he was probably slightly further outside of that far post, so he had to head it back across. But it's a really good header. I know it's a bit of a mismatch because he's a giant, and I suppose you have to ask the question, why is Innes not picking him up instead of Osadebe? But it's a good header back across Daniels, who's got absolutely no chance, and the fella on the line is unable to keep it out, such as the placement and the accuracy of the header.
Yeah, it reminded me of, I don't think it was obviously Hawkins didn't score us. It reminded me of our equaliser against Doncaster in the season when it went to the back post and we had it back across and it went in. It was a goal that was very similar, and I thought that that it was a really. I mean, eventually, laws of averages. If you're going to put a good ball in from a corner, eventually, and the man that's going to do that is Mahoney. I mean, you're right. I think he does drift out of games occasionally, but I think that the fact that he puts match-winning moments or goal-winning moments in, there's a decent payoff having a player like that who can do that. And again,
absolutely.
And to have Hawkins at the back post to jump high, he's going to probably win a lot of those headers. And, if he can get one on target like he did yesterday, it's going to make it very difficult for whatever team is standing in defence. But yeah, I was surprised to me that Osadebe was matched up against him, because I don't think Osadebe is the person to be challenging with Hawkins. But, you can only beat what's put in front of you. He jumped up, got the ball on target, and it went in the back of the net. That's ultimately how that concluded.
Absolutely, yeah. And then I think there was another chance for the Gills, and it was probably something again that when we do it really well, and we've mentioned it before on previous shows, and that's with this system that it allows one of the two outside centre backs to be brave and step into midfield and create an overload. And Connor Masterson started to do it a bit second half, and he did it on this occasion, and he kept making his run, and he didn't get picked up, and the ball eventually came back to him edge of the box, and I think he sort of feinted to shoot with one foot and then went with the other, tried to place it. I think as a centre half, and I talk as a former centre half, we're not the most finessed of players when we get into the opposition final third. So I thought maybe Masterson should have just put his foot through it, because then if the keeper saves it, it probably bounces back out into a danger area. But Connor's gone for placement, and Daniels has been able to make the save. But again, it's back to this point that we were on top. We're finally thinking maybe this is the day where we go and get another one and we put a team to bed. We've already mentioned to Josh about we was playing the game in the right areas of the pitch. We was having all the ball. We was creating the better chances. And then we switch off and get hit by a sucker punch. And I get that it's a great finish from Callum Jones to whip it in the top corner from the edge of the box. I've got no qualms about that. I thought he had a decent game. And again, it comes back to the fact that we didn't learn because we kept giving him the opportunities. But it's horrible, horrible goal to concede from our point of view. I can only describe the clearance from Luke Daniels for anyone who plays golf. He's topped the drive.
Oh, yeah.
And it's bounced three or four times before it's got through the halfway line. George Lapsley, and hold my hands up if you think I'm wrong here, Reece, and I'm being overcritical. Firstly, George Lapsley sort of looks at it, and I think he can get across and cut that out. He doesn't. He remains passive. It then allows, I think, is it McAllister on the right-hand side to go after the ball. Shadogi has to stay on his feet. He doesn't need to dive in on the touchline by the Medway stand dugouts. He makes it very easy for McAllister to escape then, and then suddenly we've got people out of position. I then watched it again. George Lapsley then lets Jones run past him, doesn't track back properly, doesn't do either going to the ball on the edge of the box or marking the man who's run past him from the halfway line. It just gives the impression that we just made it so very easy for Forest Green to get back in the game at a time when we were threatening to go on and win comfortably.
I actually thought that was indicative. Sorry, that sort of it demonstrated complacency. That whole passage of play, absolute complacency. I think from when Daniels topped his drive, we'll keep that phrase in there. Yeah, it went through too many. It was. We should have picked up on that. We should have made it difficult for Forest Green to make an attack from it. OG, unfortunately for him, those tackle he went for, he's made a couple of those this season already. So from his perspective, he might feel you could be forgiven to trying to go for it. But then again, he shouldn't be forgiven because he should look at the context of the players where he is on the pitch around them and actually stay on his feet is a better percentage play.
Yep.
Maybe that's a lack of experience. I don't know. He has to learn from that. And then even when the ball gets delivered in the box, it's a great finish from Jones, I have to say. But we gave him a bit of space to put it up there as well. We didn't really close him down. And that was, and it's just like, like we're the architects of our own defensive downfall here. We've really just an accumulation of errors which could have been intercepted at any moment of that passage of play was not done at all. And it's very easy to pick out one player, for that error, for that goal. A lot of people would have focused on OG, but I think that's a whole team effort, actually, that we've managed to undo ourselves in that situation. But I don't want to take it away from Jones because
absolutely not. It's a brilliant finish. He's still got to hit the target. He's still got to find the top corner. So in that sense, you have to say fair play. But I just think that there's just two simple things that George Lapsley can do.
Yeah.
Once he doesn't go and cut out the ball as it bounces over the halfway line, he can either track Callum Jones in, because I think it's Jones that runs from the halfway line. So if he just keeps running with Callum Jones doesn't have the opportunity to then get that shot off. Yep. Or if he's let Jones run by him to start with, he can then go out and go ball to help out Scott Malone because Ogi's out of position because he's dived in. Or he can drop in and get back into the ball. Not at one point does he say to Ethan Coleman, who's next to him, I'll go here and you go there. But again, you say it's indicative of how we repeatedly shoot ourselves in the foot. Josh, I'll come to you as well. Obviously, we're looking at it from a defensive point of view, and we're going to try and I hate doing it because sometimes I say you just have to say fair play to the goal scorer. So I'm doing that, but it's not like Callum Jones has beaten three players with skill and then whacked it in the top corner. It's very preventative, I think, the phase of play that leads to his finish. But I suppose from a Forest Green side of the story, you're probably thinking, what an excellent reaction to come back and get level only 8 minutes after conceding when you had been under the cosh for a fairly substantial period of time.
Yeah, and it also was the first time that you said in the game that's being clinical, really clinical on the break. The first real proper chance they had from actual move. Like you said, it was a great ball out from Daniels. And yeah, I think OG kind of just sells himself in that position, doesn't he, by diving in. If you just...
Did you just say it was a great ball out from Daniels?
No, not a great ball out from Daniels.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I'm not having that.
If he meant it.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure he meant it to top it 4 times across the turn.
And then once the ball gets out to McAllister, he's probably should just like even him up kind of thing, just try to just let him go one-on-one. If he beats him and then he beats him instead of just diving in, and because then at that point it just goes to panic stations at the back. And like you said about Lapsley, I didn't necessarily notice his run, but by that point it's so difficult to know what positions to take up. So just by having that one run out and missing the ball, it just changes the flow of the defence completely, doesn't it? So in that aspect, once it gets to Jones, he puts it away brilliantly and finds the top corner, and that kind of started a spell for Forest Green, didn't it? That you thought they could go on and nick this. So that was kind of the first moment of real quality, and then the fans started to believe. to be fair to them, 130 odd of them did make a bit of noise over in that corner, and just started to believe a bit more as the game went on. And that would probably say, again, how the plan worked. If they go on and win that game, you'd probably say Dan Connor's got the best managerial textbook going, because he's...
Oh, yeah, it'd be the perfect away performance if you go and win 2-1. It's not far off, to be fair, given your league position, to get a point as well.
Yeah, so the first 45 minutes was pretty drab, and you kind of expect Gillingham to make all the play, don't you, in that aspect. But Forest Green, to their credit, they stuck in, and he was really pleased afterwards that they were able to do what they did. Obviously, every manager says there's good things, there's bad things that we can work on, and I think overall he was happy that he got to 5 o'clock on Saturday, and they came away with something from what was a tough ground.
And I think it took you off the bottom as well, didn't it? On goal difference as well. So that's always a big thing psychologically as well, to get off the bottom. So, yeah, a good afternoon for Forest Green, definitely. But it could have been better. I've written down that Gills made a couple of changes immediately after the equaliser. George Lapsley and Macaulay Bonne came off. Regardless of George's part in the goal, I'm not sure that they were entirely the right decisions, because I thought in general play, I thought both were having decent enough games. But I suppose you're not going to take Ortley Hawkins off. He scored, and it was Johnny Williams and Ashley Nadesan who came on. So it was 2 straight swaps. There was no change to the system. There was no tweaks in the way that we were going to play. It was just like for like. It didn't make us better, did it, Reece? Because the chances after that all came for Forest Green. I've written down chance, big double save from Turner. I think it might have been from Fankety Darbo. So it's a credit to Jake for that one, because it had been a game where the goalkeepers hadn't really been called into action, aside from picking the ball out of the net once. So not really been extended too much. And then there was an even bigger one, and it was Darbo, the substitute, that was involved again. Gills at this point were absolutely wide open defensively. Shape had gone, discipline had gone in terms of where we were meant to be on the pitch. Darbo, I think, released it. Might have been McAllister again on the right-hand side, and he sets himself and does well, and does all you can ask from a centre-forward or a forward player, Josh. He beats Jake Turner, all ends up. But credit Shadogi. He's not sulked and let his head drop after the error for the goal, and he gets back, and it's a magnificent clearance to keep the score at 1-1.
Yeah, fantastic block, actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, fantastic block from OG. And what you could see from our angle, that McAllister, his effort was going wide, which was...
Oh, really?
Not to know that completely, and he got a great block in. He didn't quite wrap his foot around it fully, McAllister, and it's difficult to see on the highlights from the camera angle to see kind of what it was, where the effort was going. But great spar for Forest Green. They're able to put on the pressure, and probably should have put one of those away. Yeah,
and then just after, Reece, I think they had another half chance, I suppose you can call it, and that was Matty Stevens creating his own space. And I think he's tried to use, might have been Maxima or Connor Masterson as the shield to sort of blind Jake Turner, and he's gone for that far corner, and he's not missed by much. And at that point, I think me and Boz were saying, we're going to concede again here. And it was almost, when you got to full time as a Gills fan, you felt like, yes, we've got away with one here. And you're almost not happy with the point based on league positions and where we want to be for the rest of the season. But in terms of how the game finished, I think it was certainly a relief to hear the full-time whistle. It was only when you then have the benefit of sitting down and looking at the game as a whole that you probably say the draw was about the right result.
It was, and at the end of the game when the whistle went, it's kind of that it was a relief that we managed to get something from that, because it could have easily not been the case at all. That pass to play for Forest Green, I do not know for the life of me how they didn't get in the back of the net. It was, I mean, you could play that pass to play 10 more times, and I think 9 of them go in. Like, I don't know how they haven't managed to get it in the back of the net.
No, you're probably right.
We're very, I mean, you could say we're very lucky, right place, right time. I mean, I think it's very rich if I come up and say Shadowgate made up for his defensive error earlier. I think he's made the best amends he can do. But it's, like you say, it's good he didn't drop his head. He got his head back in the game and made an important block. But yeah, for me, I was actually, at the end, it was a relief that we managed to get a point, because I actually think Forest Green were unlucky not to get a second.
Yeah, totally agree. Like you say, and it comes back to what we said at the beginning. The second half was a half of two halves, because up until the equaliser, you felt that Gills were going to be the only side that could win it. Forest Green were pegged in and couldn't get out. But again, it comes back to us and mentality and that type of thing, and we'll ask about that. Me and you are going to argue now, I think, because there was one last chance left in the game for Gills to probably nick it at the end, and certainly it wouldn't have been something that they deserved based on the last 20 minutes or so. But Scott Malone clips a free kick to the far post, and again, credit Shadogi. He gets around the back and stays alive to it, and he flashes a ball across the 6-yard box. Ashley Nadesan, for me, simply has to score because the keeper's absolutely nowhere. He's not marked. I'm actually sat here looking at it because I was recording that portion of the game, and I can't see how there can be any other conclusion to say that he's got to hit the target. I think you've seen it slightly differently. Maybe I'll send you the still of it later and you might change your mind. But I want to hear your thoughts on it. But for me, Ashley Nadesan, that's tantamount to Ashley Nadesan at the moment in terms of form and confidence, because it's not the first time in recent weeks. There was one, I think, against Crawley on Boxing Day when he went round the keeper and managed to sort of stumble out of playing at the post with a goal that was almost at his mercy. For me, he's got to score. So I'm going to get your view on it, and then I will ask Josh as well from obviously his seat in the top of the midway stand.
I don't doubt he should be doing better. That's true. I think that he should be doing better. What I do doubt, though, is when that ball came in from Malone, OG volleys that across the box. And I have to say, from my perspective, when that ball came in from Malone, I kind of, just from my standpoint as a fan, half switched off because...
Right.
And because if it bounces, it bounces on the byline and goes out for a goal kick. The fact that Oji's managed to get a bit of pace, get his foot around it, put a quality volley across the box, it caught me by surprise that he managed to get around the back to do that, because it looked like it was going out for a goal kick.
I've just sent you the steal. Look at the steal. I've just sent you the steal of the point that Nadesan makes contact. I know it's a steal and it's slightly different, but for me, I just can't see how he's not hit the top, how he's not scored.
Well, he's stretching, isn't he? And the point I'm trying to make here, it's a fair point you make, but the point I'm trying to make here is, should he anticipate that? Of course, he should be anticipating that.
He's centre forward at the end of the day.
He is. I just think the surprise of Oji managed to get his foot around that probably caught a lot of people off guard. It shouldn't have caught him off guard. No, he should be a natural striker and a centre forward. But I think, should he do better? Yes. Is it a hard chance nonetheless? I still think it's a tricky one to put in the back of the net because he's overstretching. Has he made that himself a little bit? But I thought it happened so quickly from Oji. The ball came across at a pace. I think there are other chances. Probably that Crawley one, he should be scoring that more often than maybe the one yesterday. If we're going to compare two chances he's had.
Okay. My point then, and I'm going to get Josh involved as well again because it's a neutral perspective. If we're going to talk about anticipation and reading the game situations and criticise us defensively, are we then within our rights to talk about the fact that a centre forward is 3 yards out with an open goal essentially? Josh?
It's a fair point, definitely. I think he was stretching from my first view, and I thought, in that position, if you are stretching, you can't always get the best contact on it. I haven't seen the goal. Well, I haven't fully seen the chance back, actually, because it wasn't actually on the highlights, 2 minutes.
No, they didn't put it in, which was weird, or in the extended ones on iFollows either.
So, yeah, I haven't actually seen it back. At first thought, I thought he was stretching, which made it difficult, and you can't always get the best contact on it. But you're more than... you're allowed to say to strikers, if they're in bad form as well, say... Well, you have had chances to put it away, and that would have been a real sucker punch for Forest Green if that would have gone in the very last minute of the game. And with their form this season, I was told yesterday, 14 wins in the best part of 2 years in the league since Feb 2022. So it wouldn't have been too surprising either to see Forest Green crumble in the way that it could have gone in the last minute.
I've just sent you the video as well, so I'll let you have a look as well, just so you've got the actual footage of it as well. But for me, I'm sticking with my guns. But obviously,
for what it's worth, it's in my. I put it in my video, so it does exist within there, so you can see it from.
Okay, no, I want to watch your video once we've done this because I want to see it from the iFollow camera. Obviously, I'm looking at it from the other side, where I'm only side of the goal, so it's different. So maybe I might watch that side, and I might agree slightly more. But for me, I still think he should score anyway, but he didn't. And if your uncle, she'd have and all that type of thing. Full-time whistle blew shortly after, and I think it's fair to say that a point was about right, and it's certainly a better point for Forest Green than it is for Gills. I think from our point of view, it's just a case of hoping now, Reece, that the 2 games against Forest Green don't ultimately come back and bite us on the backside come the business end of the season, because it's teams that you should be beating. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to Forest Green, but if you want to get promoted, you have to be beating teams that are at the bottom of the Football League, I think.
But it'd be very Gillingham to go up to Mansfield and then like beat them 3-0. You know what I mean? So it's that. But you know,
three goals away from home.
Yeah, fair point. I might have overextended that, but the point still remains. Like we do tend to trip ourselves up over teams that we should be at least, you know, putting away comfortably. And then that's no disrespect to Forest, and they came with a plan and executed it pretty well, to be fair. And it's just you know, other teams are finding ways to undo Forest Greens and your Suttons and your Colchesters, and you know, we've done that quite well so far this season. But there are a couple of teams you think, oh well, we should have got a few more points than we did against them. And I think Forest Green is one of those teams, unfortunately for us this season. But all credit where credit's due, they got 2 points out of us. So, you know, fair play to them.
2 different managers in a matter of 29 days. The crazy world of football.
And their first games as well, their debut.
Yep. Mental, absolutely mental. Josh, I just want to ask you as an overview of Gillingham. I get that it's a fairly small segment, just 90 minutes, or I'm assuming you watch the 90 minutes at the New Lawn as well, so 180 minutes. But where do you see Gills ending up in terms of the rest of the season? Because we've had this issue in front of goal for a long time now. So I think, depending on whether you're glass half empty or glass half full as a Gills fan, the positive is that we're still well in touch with the playoffs and even the top 3 if we can get ourselves together and go on a run, despite having a -8 goal difference. I guess that the other issue is obviously if we lose that relatively defensive solidity that we do have generally. I mean, yesterday's goal is not the best way to advertise that, but then obviously the season could fall off and we could end up around mid-table. So what do you think Gills need to improve on if they want to get back into the top 7 and solidify a place in the playoffs?
Yeah, what I would say is the 180 minutes that I have watched haven't been a great advert, I would say, for football. I'd probably say 8th position at the moment probably surprises me. But I just find that when you playing teams at the top of League Two, they have a real set plan. They know what they're going to do, and just part of me felt that Gills didn't have a full plan, or if it wasn't working, what was plan B, if you know what I mean. So I think when you are seeing a lot of teams towards the top of the table, they do have other ways of winning. They do have other means of getting over the line. Gills' scoring record surprises me based on where they are on the table. Keeping clean sheets is obviously always going to help you up the table as well. Just something that they have been able to do, but goals are key. You see so many teams in this league just score so many goals, and it's a strange one because they're barrow towards the top and they hardly score either. It's strange how there's such a disparity between some teams. I think with a bit of recruitment in January, I'm aware that Gills have got one of the higher budgets in the league as well. But whether they see it as they've got enough this season, or whether they dip into trying to recruit is something for your end, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I think there's been a couple of names mooted about in terms of strikers coming in. One that seems to have gathered pace is Georgie Kelly coming in on loan from Rotherham out of the Championship. So I think it is something that we're still going to look to be active in, just to tweak and sort of refresh and rejig that forward area, because clearly that's the part of the pitch where we need to improve on. Reece, I'm going to come to you. Last week we was effervescent in our praise of Stephen Clements's substitutions. So I guess it's only right that I'm going to question it. You might not. You might have been absolutely fine with them. But I thought the substitutions made us worse yesterday. I don't think Stephen Clements was brave enough. It was 2 straight swaps. So it wasn't like Forest Green went, and it comes back to what Josh has just said. What's the plan B for Gills? There wasn't one yesterday. It was just, we'll take 2 off and we'll put 2 like for likes on. So nothing really changed in the way we were playing, meaning that there was nothing that forced Forest Green to think in a different way. Why did we not gamble? We're the home side. The onus is on us. I get if we gamble and get beat, then there's question marks. But we're 8th trying to get promoted. Forest Green are bottom. And again, it's with the utmost respect. Why are we not sacrificing the centre half in injury time and lobbing on another attacking player to try and force the issue, because 7 minutes went up. And again, I've had this chat with you on previous occasions. Gills tweeted 7 minutes injury time. After that, I think there was one tweet, and then it was full time. You'd be hoping from a home fan's perspective, there's almost like an Alamo situation where you think, right, get the crowd up. Let's just pin them in. It didn't happen aside from the Naderson chance.
No, absolutely. I think it's interesting because I wonder if Clements maybe felt he had to make a change for the sake of making a change. I don't know, because I don't know the player's underlying condition, wellness. If there's a minor injury that's been picked up, we don't know that. But let's assume that's not the case. If you're changing for the sake of changing, I actually think what was left out on the pitch, if you played the full 90 minutes of those players, you probably had a good chance of getting a second goal. I just thought that the subs either had no impact or had a negative impact, and I think it was more of the latter of that. I just thought it crumbled a little bit near the end of the game once the subs happened. I just thought it changed. Like I say, it changed nothing, and I wonder if it was a substitution for the sake of the substitution, because that's what coaches and managers are meant to do, right? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that seems to. I see what you mean, because it seems we get to an hour and then we have to make two changes, but there's no sort of proactive thought process in terms of switching the system up. And I like the 3-4-1-2 for Gills, because I think it gives us a solid base. It protects Maxima's lack of pace. It now means that we've got two fullbacks that can play higher up the pitch. It means we can have a front two and get Ollie Hawkins into the side. It means Connor Mahoney can have that free role, or Johnny Williams if he comes on. But it doesn't mean we have to rigidly play and not change in game to try and throw other teams off the scent, so to speak, or to make them think differently. And I just thought that the final period of the game, and it's a word we've used plenty of times with Gills, it just drifted again. And we made it very easy for Forest Green. And I've written down 3 Ps again regarding the Gills: passive, pedestrian, and open brackets, lacking pace. It's still the same old issues for Gills. And until that gets rectified, why does it take us 60 minutes to start playing? Why is there such a disparity between performance levels compared to scoring a goal and conceding a goal? It's the same questions that we keep asking. And how long do we keep saying, well, Stephen Clements has only been in the job for X amount of time now? Because he's been here nearly 3 months and I've still not seen a massive change. And I don't want to go too far in on Stephen Clements, because I was very positive about it last week, but I just thought more could have been done yesterday to force the issue against a team that was bottom of the league and low on confidence.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really nicely there. What change has happened so far? Not a lot. But I don't know. I want to go back to when you say, like, we sacked Harris, we get Clements, and what's it? We need to be higher than 8th. We're 8th at the moment. Like, almost nothing's changed there either. No. Is that where we
win a similar amount, we score a similar amount, we concede a similar amount. There's been no huge change of direction, has there?
But I think it needs to be. I think we need to wait till this transfer window closes, see what we get, and see what the reaction to that will be.
Absolutely.
And then if we start creep at the table, we're not 5th, 4th, then you can start to go, oh, maybe it was okay, there is some progress. But if we kind of stagnate at 8th, then you kind of go, well, what change happened? What is the short term game hasn't played off? But obviously,
because then the question mark comes about the month that we lost between Neil Harris going and Stephen Clements being appointed. Would that month have been crucial? Would we have picked up a point against Notts County, which would have us in the playoffs now?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Yesterday, we essentially played our game in hand over them because their game was called off. MK Dons lost at home. We'd have been 6th if we'd won the football match. That's the frustration for me. I want to end on an away perspective, though, Joshua. I'm just going to come to you because people know my opinions of this particular player because I had run-ins with him a few years ago, and that's Emmanuel Osadebe. But credit to him yesterday. I thought he was very, very good. I thought he ran the show first half. I thought he was everything that we lacked. He was driving through the pitch with or without the ball. I think one thing I noticed with him in terms of leadership, which is another question mark surrounding Gills when we concede goals, was when the Macaulay Bond chance came that was ruled out for offside, you immediately see Osadebe looking around, cajoling his teammates and sort of geeing them up again and say, come on, we've got away with one here, let's be better. I get that it was a long time ago that we had Osadebe in our squad and he was younger, but he seems to have matured a little bit. I thought that was a very impressive debut from him up until the point where I think he had to go off with what either was a knock or a bad case of cramp.
I completely agree with that. At half time, I did say on commentary that he's the one player that you did look at in that first half and said he's got a bit of character. He's got some drive about him. he took it on in tough situations. I think one thing that you can probably say about teams towards the bottom of the table is they can be quite reluctant to pick up the ball in
they
tough
hide.
games.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he is obviously coming in with fresh impetus with that, coming in on a permanent deal the other day. So I think that was the real strong point from him. And he had a really good first half, maybe faded away in the second. And as the waves of attack started to come from Gillingham, he started to, not him, but as a team, they were pushed back further, didn't they? And maybe you are asking for the leaders on the pitch to take control in that situation, but you're not asking him on his debut to do that. The performance that he did put in was really positive, and all credit to him, because it was a tough game to come into, and you said you had him back in his younger days, but yeah, like you said, he's matured a little bit of underwhelmed, maybe not in our fan base, but Bradford were kind of happy to let him go in the position. So maybe expectations were slightly lower, and he really impressed. I thought he was the one player in that first half that you could say could hold his head up high. And like you said, after the offside goal went in, he was the one player to try and get around the players and just give them a lift. And to his credit, you can say he had a good performance yesterday.
Yeah, I thought it was very encouraging from a Forest Green point of view, and I think once you get the lad Gorin back from suspension, I think that's promising in terms of them two midfielders. I think they'll be decent at the level, and certainly where you are in the table, they'll be an asset. Gents, as always, it's been a pleasure. I think we've done well to shift out 55 minutes or so of that after that game yesterday. So thank you very much for your time. Gills fans and Forest Green fans, like I always say, if you're watching at this point, thank you very much. Please keep doing all you're doing, liking, subscribing, sharing, retweeting, interacting, arguing, disagreeing, agreeing, whatever it is. You are noticing that I'm wearing one of these Fan Hub beanies. I do have a couple to give away, so keep an eye out on my socials during the week. There'll be a couple of competitions running in conjunction with Fan Hub to give away a couple of these beanie hats, which you probably needed last week. It's meant to be warm again next week, so it's an absolute waste of time, and I've probably timed this competition completely wrong. But such is life. Everyone loves free stuff, don't they? We'll be back Wednesday to preview MK Dons away. And of course, we'll return next Saturday. Myself and Ava will be travelling up to Stadium MK for that one for another match day live. But until then, I hope you've had a restful weekend. I hope your week is not too stressful at work. And up the Gills.